think the future of YouTube... Because obviously you're a YouTube specialist with a PhD in memes. What do you think the...
Worst PhD, by the way. The dentist's office I applied to was not impressed.
Oh, wasn't it? Oh, wow. I thought...
What do I think of what?
Oh, the future of YouTube. What do you think the future of YouTube is going?
I think it's going to... YouTube is the future of entertainment in some fashion, because most people under like 25 potentially watch more YouTube than they do TV. It's certainly like if you pick like a random teenager, I think it's much more likely they're watching Philip DeFranco than they are CBS Sunday Morning.
That's very true.
So it's extremely influential in that right. And the only reason that it hasn't been seen as that yet is that the old media is very much built off of an older generation that doesn't understand new media. And I think there's going to be a huge wave where eventually people start to treat YouTube very seriously. And this idea of personality-driven content that works on a standalone basis, where a television show would need 1,000 or so, more people than that even, to run properly. Suddenly like a guy with a game controller and a bad light and a camera can make just as much money as those guys. It's going to be a huge turning point in the future. I won't be surprised if there's if stuff that's happening right now seems insignificant, someone will study that in the future, Someone will say this is, YouTube evolved in this way. Because it's called new media for a reason, I think. And I think some of it's going to have a very long-term standing.
No, that's very...
That's my...
And when you brought up the fact of... it's quite a funny thing, especially from my perspective, is when you said most people from under the age of 25 are watching more YouTube, like Phil DeFranco, than news itself. It's quite interesting because... for example, myself, I work within the TV industry and the TV news especially, and I certainly watch more YouTube than I will ever watch television.
Yeah.
And
the question of how media is going to adapt to this change, it hasn't quite hit yet, but I think it will hit probably in the next 10 to 20 years. Because eventually I think there's going to be somewhat of a shift between the people who make, the mainstream stream TV broadcast, as their audience, to be morbid, potentially starts to die off. They're going to start to say, now where's the replacement? And the replacement is watching YouTube videos. And they're going to say, how do we take over that? And I think you've already seen that with channels like SNL. People like SNL already move a lot of their market to YouTube. And I guess they probably make a good amount of money off of doing that, off posting their own skits on YouTube. Because those get several million views. And of course, you've got the talk shows taking over YouTube. Jimmy Kimmel.
That's true.
Wherever YouTube bred, the talk show hosts are a main facet, more in focus than potentially some of the biggest YouTube channels. And I think as the shift in how seriously those YouTube is taken, that'll probably change. I mean, I can tell you, sponsored ads already pay a stupid amount of money, and I just think that as brands start to realize that a lot of it is their startup brands spend their money around on YouTube,
Yeah.
Coca-Cola puts their ads on a Sunday morning talk show, and something like Dollar Shave Club puts their ads on a YouTube video. So it's a different market of people, but I think it's a smart business model for the smaller guys, and the bigger guys, well, it'd be kind of weird to imagine like a YouTuber being like, this video is sponsored by Pepsi Cola.
Yeah. Mm.
Go on.
Well, I was just agreeing with what you're saying.
I can't remember what I was going to say, so just go on.
Yeah. Well, so where do you think the future of now, more specifically, sort of the content of YouTube is heading? Do you think that, because we've already seen sort of like especially with monetization and different algorithmic changes, it's sort of YouTube itself is probably pushing to sort of a more normative audience. Do you think this is going to be a continual incline, or do you think potentially that there may be a break from this? Or
I think that it's very probable that we might see more less edgy channels come into fruition. I know a lot of people are scared of that. As a YouTuber who makes his living because his content is seen as somewhat family friendly, it's hard for me to get too stressed out about the idea that little kids aren't being recommended really edgy videos anymore. Because that's what you have to remember, is a lot of YouTube is children. And I think this demonetization thing has been YouTube maybe trying to take responsibility in some sense. I think we're definitely going to see a bigger trend of YouTubers who can make salient content without it being very explicit. Though I don't think it will affect like people using curse words. But I definitely think there's going to be a push for more normative content, which makes sense because they want to push for a mainstream audience. And again, like I said, they want to be recommending videos to children that children can watch. And that's yeah.
I know. I like, especially with sort of explicit language on YouTube. In the last couple of years, it's sort of, I've just been quite surprised and to see, but in a sort of interesting way. It's sort of, I would say, like if you look at, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, you had some of the most explicit YouTubers would be something like, I don't know, Filthy Frank, or even now, like some of the bigger ones was like Leafy. Every second word was a swear, but that was just his thing, but made tons of money off it. But now, whenever I see sort of content now, some big YouTubers out there just it always monitoring explicit language. So if you even look at like Sorrow TV, who does the Reddit, reading through Reddit posts and whatnot, or Internet Historian, of where they do look at really controversial and sort of edgy content. However, it's done in a very clean way, and it's very interesting of how this dynamic has changed.
I think the algorithm is stupid. I'll give you that much. I think the algorithm doesn't know, if the algorithm hears the word terrorist, it thinks this is a video promoting terrorists.
Yep.
And meanwhile, a video actually promoting terrorists gets away with it because it doesn't use the word terrorist.
It uses,
I think the system is new and in its baby steps. And hopefully that will become more understandable. Another problem is that YouTube has a system for content creators to get away with that, but they can't tell people the system because horrible people exist that will misuse the system.
Yep.
There's certain tags you can use if you make a video about, something personal that you want to share with people. There are tags you can use to get around this, but they can't tell people the tags because then trolls are going to be using the tags. It's really, I feel bad for them partially because there's not much they can do about it.
No, that's very true.
But I guess in terms of the trend, we're probably I can imagine us seeing us potentially moving away from more commentary-driven stuff in the coming years to potentially more, free-flowing. I could definitely see vlogs surviving and becoming bigger. It's just my guess that specifically commentary on potentially internet culture isn't going to be as big as it was like 2 years ago.
No,
that's just my guess.
That's very true, because it's just very interesting seeing some of like the growth in different YouTubers. Like obviously, like you have the Logan Pauls and Jake Pauls, who are now the sort of largest growing ones, but compare them to, I don't know, maybe like 5 years ago, just in terms of like how the content has completely changed, and it's sort of a lot more child friendly. Because even though like Filthy Frank was biggest, even though I wouldn't know if he was the fastest growing, he was very sort of, I guess, cult classic, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I know the Storytime animators are currently doing like better than anyone else.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. I mean, if you look at like Jake, The Odd Ones Out,
he has
like 7 million subscribers, and all the other ones are going up really quickly.
I guess Dominic's and whatnot. And...
I keep finding channels that I've never heard of that like literally hit 1 million subscribers when I find them. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I get that.
And you have to do that really quickly for people not to notice. And that's the sort of content I'm talking about, where like I think it's going to be more personality driven and less about whatever you're discussing. That's just my guess. I think that's more in line with where the site is headed. And of course now I think a lot of people are starting to hate those guys because they just resent the fact that that's what's popular now.
That's true.
But I think they're great.